have a Lamborghini.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool for about a month.
Yeah.
Then you start worrying about like, okay, it costs X amount of money for an oil change.
Yeah, dude.
And it's like, okay, if it breaks, where am I going to take? It's just becomes another thing, right? And I think for these folks that
it's a quick flex.
Yeah, it's totally, that's all it is. So those things don't matter. It may be satisfied a short-term itch, but eternity and a life with Jesus is going to last forever.
Guys, welcome to the Jesus People podcast. This is an exciting episode with Chad Kammeraad here. Thank you for coming all the way to Dallas, the lovely Dallas, Texas.
Yes, let's go. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and this is a cool story, how we connected. Excited to share that, but also just want to say this is maybe the first big time business guy we've had. And this isn't a business. I know there's tons of business podcasts out here, but it's good to have a big dog on the Jesus People podcast. So thanks for being with us.
And a follower of Jesus.
That's more importantly. More importantly. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to talk about Jesus, of course, and would love to even just kind of hear, you've told me the story, but I think it's a pretty cool story of how we connected and kind of your journey to faith.
Yeah. So it is an interesting story. So my wife and I have been on this complete, path of finding Jesus and just really getting into the word. And it's interesting because when COVID hit, I got a bit lazy. I've always been a competitor. Imagine that, right? I run sales at Microsoft, but at the end of the day, I stopped working out. I stopped doing all this exercise, and my wife was on me. My 4 kids were all on me. So one of my sons actually got me into hiking. There's a state park, 1.5 miles from our house. And I went the first couple times and I just got hooked. And it wasn't just from the physical activity. I loved being out in nature, God's creation, but more importantly, it was my time, quality time with God, to listen to podcasts, learn the word, right? Just a sacred hour and a half, depending on how fast I'm moving that day, of just getting time with him. And interesting how you and I met. I was literally just consuming all this Christian content. Yeah. John Bevere was my guy, right? I got to see him in person.
He is the guy.
He is the guy. And so I was just consuming all this content in Spotify, and where I do a 5-mile loop, and it's way out in the woods. So the only platform that really does work, even though he has his Messenger X platform, the only platform that came through was Spotify. And so I consumed all that. And I'm on this 5-mile hike, and I'm 3.5 miles in. When you're hiking, you've got your phone on your back, right? So it's not like you're going to stop and kind of regroup everything. Well, Spotify kicks over to this guy named Ryan Miller. And I'm like, who in the heck is this Ryan Miller guy? And I'm like, I'll just listen to it. I'm 3.5 miles. Yeah. So literally there's 8 inches of snow. And as you know, as a hiker, right, when you're breaking the trail, nobody went before me. So it's like, this was a hard day. Right. So I'm like, all right. I got through, and it was Amanda's episode. And Amanda gave a great testimony on, she actually had a dream about going to heaven, and, just the whole, I'll let you go into more detail on it. But that episode started to move me, and I'm literally getting to the hardest hill on this hike. And I stopped, and I'm like, what's going on? And Jesus stopped me dead in my tracks. And he's like, I want you to reach out to Ryan Miller. And I'm like, what am I going to do with Ryan Miller? Like, who is this guy? Why are you asking me to do this? But I think based on the maturity of my faith, I'm starting to say yes. And I never had before. And so 3.5 miles in, I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to trust you. I don't know where you're going to go with this. So I finished my loop, got in my truck, and I shot you off. I can't even remember what platform it was, a Facebook or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I did what I was told to do. Yeah, it's never going to go anywhere, right? But sure enough, Ryan calls me, right? And he's like, dude, let's get on the phone and let's talk about this. And I think the conversation we had over a Teams meeting was pretty amazing. And I think we had a lot of commonality in that discussion, and it led us to here. Got me on an airplane flying from Detroit to see you here in Dallas.
Amen.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, that was it. And, we were talking about this earlier, like, I will get a lot of people reach out and be like, hey, I want to be on the podcast, or I want to, connect and stuff like that. But both my virtual assistant and the lady who sends out my daily devotionals through email, they both hit me up. They're like, this, high up guy at Microsoft wants to connect. And I'm like, okay. So
Y-
hopping on the call. And I think what was cool, like you said, it was like instantly feel like joined in the spirit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like been to the mountaintop and realize there's no there, and you just want Jesus. Like that's what this podcast is all about. If you've listened, you hear me say this all the time, but it's like when you get the category for what's possible with Christ, everything else just fades to the background. It's like the 4-minute mile was broken. The next week, everyone breaks the 4-minute mile because the category was shattered. It's like, oh,
Mm.
that's not possible. And what's so cool is like this podcast isn't going after the most successful, famous Christians. I want to go after the abiders and to hear your faith through everything that you've experienced and encountered. Like getting to the top of a very difficult mountaintop to get to in business.
Yep.
It's something that I think, for me, my biggest insecurity is probably that I'm not competent. So to get to a place where you're like, I'm freaking competent. Like,
Yeah. Right.
I've done it in multiple different ventures.
Right.
And to get there and realize there's no there and just be hungry for Christ. That's why I've been so excited to have you on the podcast. It's just because that's really rare and that's really cool. And I want to hear more about that. How did you get to that place?
Yeah. And it's interesting about what you just said. You're always chasing.
Yeah.
And you hear this all the time. The person who makes 100 grand tries to figure out how he makes 200, and it just keeps raising,
Yeah.
right? So you get to this mountaintop, and it's never a mountaintop. You always feel a void,
Mm.
right? And that seriously has been such a game changer for me because things are so more rich with Jesus there, right?
Mm.
And things open up. This
Mm.
the reason I'm sitting in Dallas is because I said yes. I
Yeah.
would have never done this before. I live a very private life and I like to keep it right. I'm going to have, tons of employees that are going to listen to this podcast
Mm.
and, it takes a bit of courage, but
Yeah.
you're always going to be chasing something, right? Because there's always somebody that's wealthier than you,
Mm.
more successful than you, has
Mhm.
more toys than you, maybe has more, followers than you.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's interesting because everyone kind of thinks that I just ended up here.
Mm.
And it's not the case. I came from very humble beginnings. I was born and raised in a trailer park,
Mm.
and we had one car.
Wow.
Yeah, we had one car. My mom worked days at J.C. Penney's as a clerk, and my dad worked nights at Tool and Die. So there was kind of not only, at that age when you're young, you don't really understand that there's other things out there because you're just so
Mm.
young. You're just happy to have your mom and dad. But as you start getting a little bit older, I found myself kind of gravitating towards other families and seeing what's, success looks like or what does a perfect family unit look like. And I was fortunate because a mile and a half back then we could ride our bikes anywhere. Now it's a little bit more forbidden, but
Mhm.
I'd go a mile and a half to my buddy's house. His name was Link,
Mm.
and his dad was a doctor and his mom was a stay-at-home mom, and they were a Christian family.
Mm.
And boy, it was just so contagious, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And no fault to my parents. They were doing everything that they could do, but
Sure.
just seeing what kind of the normal life looks like and had nothing to do with wealth, but just kind of the family unit. And it was during that relationship with Link that, he's getting all excited to go to a Christian camp. And I'm like, okay, well, I would love to go to a Christian camp more for just the fellowship and just hanging
Yeah.
out with buddies and getting to do the fun activities because it was on Lake Michigan. And that trip changed my life. So
Mm.
Link's dad knew that I probably couldn't afford to go. And he's
Mm.
like, listen, I've already got your ticket. You're going. It's a week long kind of offsite, Camp
Mm.
Geneva. And I got hooked up with a guy named, I think his name was Skip.
Mm.
He was a camp counselor. And 3 days in, after all the fun kind of wore off, it started getting a little heavy on Jesus. And I'm like, whoa,
Mm.
this is getting serious now, right?
Yeah.
And this guy pulled me apart. He saw something in me and he just started, ministering to me and talking to me about Christ. And man, it just hit me. I'm feeling
Mm.
it right now. I'm just getting
Mm.
goosebumps thinking about it. But that's the day I accepted Christ at a very early age at 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of changed the trajectory of my life, knowing like, hey, I'm going to do something here and it's going to be with Christ in my life at a very early age.
Yeah.
But in that, God also gave me two things. He gave me a growth mindset, and he gave me a very tenacious kind of personality. I'm the type of person that if I want something, I'm going to go get it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to stop until I get there.
Yeah.
So at an early age, I'm like, listen, there's got to be more to this than just, living in a trailer park, struggling, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
going to make something of my life. Right. And so,
Was that
this-
a conscious thought?
yes,
Okay.
yes, at a very early age. And so you come off of this experience where you accept Christ at 10
Yeah.
or 11, whatever it was. I go home and I'm like, okay, I got a North Star. I'm going to go figure this thing out.
Mm.
Right.
And figuring it out was getting out of the trailer park, or was it following Jesus, or was it
Uh, I,
combo of both?
I think it was both. I
Yeah.
think it was both. It was like, listen, I want to have a better life. I want to be something in life. I don't want to struggle in life.
Yeah.
And now that I've got Jesus on my side, I'm good. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Skip at the camp counselor, he kept referencing Jeremiah 29:11, right? Like God's got a plan for you, plan to do good, not evil, right? And
Mhm.
so I just kept thinking about that. But it was shortly after I left camp, and I'm on this spiritual high that we always get on, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like the Holy Spirit's in me and all this great stuff. Man, the devil came, and
Mhm.
he came so clear. And he's like, listen, why are you going that path? Look at what I've done for others, right?
Mhm.
Other idols that you have. I can give all this to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And he attacked me hard.
Yeah.
But I decided to stay my true course.
How
And like,
so?
he was just in all my thoughts and all
Got
my
it.
dreams. He's like, you want money, you want wealth, right? So he
Okay.
started planting those seeds of material things in my mind that I thought was success, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So he started twisting a God-given design in you
Yep.
to make things exponentially grow, and said, we're going to materialize this whole thing.
He's
We're
going to
going
try to catch me before I get too ingrained with God.
to, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's going to try to steal me away.
Yeah.
Right. And he's going to use his tools that he uses in common day right now. Right. I mean,
Mhm.
people get bamboozled by the big singers and the
Mhm.
actors and all this other stuff. So, I fought it and I stayed the true course. And I'm like, okay, I'm back to my North Star. I got God in my corner. So I kind of took a look at what I was going to go do with my life at a very early age. And I'm like, I looked at myself. I'm like, well, I don't have a face for acting. Right. I'm not going to be a linebacker for the
Mhm.
Lions, so I
Mhm.
got to start figuring this out,
Well, you
right?
could probably be a linebacker. For
I
them. It's
could
not
be
hard to make that team, right?
well, they don't have the benefit of seeing the full Chad. I'm not that big,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So anyway, I'm like, listen, this business route, God blessed me with this growth mindset. I knew that. He blessed me with a desire and like a tenacity like nobody else. So I'm going to go figure that out.
Mhm.
So I just kind of journeyed through life and, worked my butt off. Got through colleges, several. And then I'm like, listen, I'm ready to go. And so I went after the corporate world, got into tech sales,
Hmm.
started really just crushing it.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because God, again, in that growth mindset, and this is my kind of my theory on just business excellence and how I build high performing teams. The second you become comfortable, you got to get uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Right. And so if you're ever going to grow, you can't stay in a position of comfort.
Yeah.
And so as I started like doing really well in these companies, I knew I had to move. Right.
Hmm.
And so it was God, obviously, and he'll tell you as we come to the conclusion how it showed up. But I knew that I had to make these bounces strategically to end
Hmm.
up kind of where I'm at today.
Yeah.
Right. And so for those that are wondering where I'm at today, right, what
Mhm.
is the destination?
Yeah.
So now I'm a partner at Microsoft.
Mhm.
So if you think about Microsoft has 223,000 employees. They generate $260 billion a year. It's a big company.
It's pretty big.
Yep. So to be a partner, you got to work super, super hard. And,
Mhm.
most people have to have a solid tenure behind them. We'll get into that in a second. And then my day job is I run global sales and operations for some of our largest spending customers around the world. And then my third piece is I've also joined boards of, some pretty big companies that we won't get into today, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the third function. But the interesting part of, where God came in again, because my wife and I, we kind of laugh about this now, but we were kind of CEO Christians. For those that don't know what that is, that's the Christmas and Easter only.
Mhm.
So we never really had like a home connection to, a good church. And so we kind of breezed through life thinking about, what's in it for us. And of course, when Christmas came around, let's thank the Lord and all this stuff.
Mhm.
But we never really got into that deep foundation. So while I'm off trying, getting into Microsoft, wanting to get into a partner position. I think the interesting part was God rocked my wife.
Mm,
He like rocked her. You talked a little, talked to her this morning about it. She had a lot of anxiety. She didn't want to leave the house. Just the whole world was kind of falling apart for her. And this
mm,
anxiety was just gripping her. And it was God, I think, wanting her to get ready for the transformation that was going to come in both of us.
mm.
And that we needed to be, kind of jointly yoked in order to go take on this
Yeah.
endeavor together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, out of that, I encouraged my wife to go talk to some of her Christian friends because I knew, we're not going to do the therapist thing. We're not going to do the pill thing, right? Like I could just sense God telling us like
Mm,
we need to go. Well, we got connected with one of her old high school friends, and she's like, "Come to my church," and this church was just amazing. It was
mhm,
exactly what we needed, and the timing was perfect.
mm,
And so while this is all going on, I have this very tenacious personality. I'm like, I'm going to go after this partner thing.
mm.
And, I'm going to look for that promotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I was getting discouraged. I've been passed up twice.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay, this isn't going to happen. And the excuse I got was, hey, you just haven't been with Microsoft that long. You got to stick it out. Most of the people that join that, it's an exclusive club. You got, the top executives from Xbox and our Surface devices and our software groups. And so you just got to put your time in.
mhm.
It's unacceptable for me, right? So I'm going to go take the hill and I'm going to go
Yeah.
figure it out. So early on in my career, I developed this thing where I love when I mentor people. I always say, listen, I want you to envision yourself. And I'm going to say the same thing to you. This is a great
Mhm,
exercise. Think about where you want to be 3 to 5 years.
mm,
Include God into that discussion.
mhm,
Really visualize, close your eyes, visualize where you're going to be in 3 to 5 years. But the most important part of that, once you kind of anchor on, okay, where's Ryan going to be 3 to 5 years?
mm,
Who are all the people
mm,
that surround that decision, personally and professionally? What's in it for them?
mm.
You get a whole different narrative on life.
Yeah.
So I kind of did this as I was going for partner status. I'm like, all right, who are the people that are saying no? I'm going to go figure out what their personal and professional agenda is in Chad getting this partner status.
Mm,
So I was just on it.
mm.
I identified who they were and I was on it. And I went and convinced them of the sell of what Chad would bring in this partner capacity to Microsoft. So success, right?
Yeah.
Got it. All is good. We're on this great journey. My family's doing great. My wife and I are on this great journey. And so what do
Life's
I
looking
do?
good.
Life's perfect, man. I can't think of a bigger hill. Like I'm
Yeah,
like
you conquered
boom.
that baby.
I got that one gone.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go set my sights for like being the CEO of a company next, right? So
Mhm.
like I'm all about Chad. So I'll never forget the night that I got the call that, hey, you made it. You made partner status, which
Yeah.
was such an accomplishment, and I knew I was gonna get it, right?
Yeah.
Um, I went and sat on my back patio, right? Poured myself a glass of wine. This is all about a Chad moment, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, man, I made it. I came from a trailer park. I was nothing. And now I'm here, right? I got a smoking hot wife. I got a Lamborghini. I got G Wagons. I got houses. I got all this material stuff. And I'm like, whew, you did it. You did it. And I went to bed and literally it was the longest night of my life.
Mm,
The Lord just rocked me. And he literally, I'll paraphrase, but he literally said, I gave all this to you for me, not
mm.
for you. And that was like a wake up call. I'm like, okay, so what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Right? What do I do with this? He's like, you're going to start saying yes. And while he was doing it, he showed me my entire life. And I'll give you some highlights of things that he showed me, right? Some positive and some negatives to show me that he was there and that I fought against him through
Mhm.
free will. A couple of those examples, we shared one this morning about, at early in my career, I started at this company called PTC, and I was one of the youngest vice presidents in the company's history, right?
Yeah.
And man, my ego was huge. It wouldn't fit in this house, right? Wouldn't fit in two or three of these
Yeah.
houses. I just thought, man, I'm the man,
Mhm.
right? It's got this charity golf outing we're going to sponsor. I'm paying for it through my company, so everyone should be bowing down to Chad, all this good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we had the way they set it up was these big companies would come and they would have these executives ride in the cart with us as part of what we paid for, right?
Yeah.
One hole. And so this guy gets in my cart And, I'm like, oof, okay, cool. Right. We're going to go through the spiel. I'm going to sell him something, like tell him
Yeah,
how
yeah,
great I
yeah,
am.
yeah.
Well, anyway, he's like, hey, tell me about Chad. And, I can tell you who Chad is now, but back then it was, oh my gosh, let me tell you about Chad. I do this and this is what I do. And I'm the youngest VP ever. And this guy just looked at me and he's like, that didn't tell me anything about Chad. I was so offended. And I'm like, what is going on? So of course I walk back to my entourage that of course is on this Chad Praise Fest, right? And I'm like, who the heck is this guy?
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, that's Lee Iacocca.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know who Lee Iacocca is, do a Google search. This guy saved Chrysler Corporation,
Mhm.
which is now Stellantis. For your younger generation, the Jeep that you're in is probably due to the fact that he turned around Chrysler.
Yeah.
So big deal,
Yeah.
right? So God showed me that that was a missed opportunity.
Mm.
I could have learned so much from him personally and professionally about what it could have meant to be, think about all the conversations I could have had in that one hole
Yeah.
as opposed to me just blowing it off.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's so good. I think about high school. Like I was in high school ministry and I would go after the Lord's given me a gift to see troubled boys for what they are. And you and I were both wild kids, it sounds like.
Yep.
Um, and I'd go on these high school campuses and I could just point out the fatherless boys. Just that one, that one, that one, that one. And the more I've gotten in rooms with successful people, it's like the same exercise. It's like it doesn't matter how successful you are. What I'm pointing out is insecure, insecure, insecure.
hmm
And it's like there are and I see it in my own heart as well. It's like you talk about the desire for more, more, more growth, 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 growth. And what it is it's insecurity. It's a misplaced identity in the things we do rather than who God's designed us to be. And it sounds like the lesson you learned in that moment was what moves people that have experienced every mountaintop is not what most men are striving for to get to that mountaintop. It's like they've gotten there and realized there's no there there. And so now it's like, okay, how can I love? And that's what I've actually noticed when I rub shoulders with people who are really wealthy or really famous or really successful and they love Jesus, there's almost a different depth of faith because you've already shaken off the thorny soil. You've been like, that was weird.
Yeah.
Like all the things that were grasping for my attention, I've tasted and seen that the world is not good.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I've gotten through that. I've realized there's no there on the mountaintop. I've had the wine on the back porch experience where I made partner and now whatever. Like I just want to love people now. And there's this I think it was Bob Jones who, was a prophet back in the very like accurate prophet back in like the 80s and 90s. And I remember him talking about how he had this encounter with God where like the Lord like took him into this heaven vision and he stood before the Lord and he said there was one question that Jesus asked me in heaven and it was, did you learn to love? And
Wow.
and that has always stuck with me because I think that's the biggest question. And what is love? It's like it's sacrifice, it's selflessness, it's putting others above yourself. That's everything Jesus teaches.
That's what
But
he did.
and
Yeah.
and I think that there's this thing in masculinity now where we see these pictures of masculinity. Like you would be on that Mount Rushmore for me, right? Like you'd be the guy who like made it. And I think so many young men, and I want to get to like almost giving a message to the younger generation here too, because I think you've got a lot to say to them. But the idols that I think a lot of these young people are seeing right now is they're seeing success that's built on a foundation of pride and ego. And we don't have a lot of people that were like Solomon that and like you where you're like, I made it, dude. And I realized there's no there there. And that category seems to be missing from a lot of young people. And you've got 4 out of 5. This is a literal stat. 4 out of 5 10-year-olds want to be influencers when they grow up. Scary, dude. That's 80% of 10-year-olds. You ask them what their dream job is. Their dream job is I want to be seen by people. And it's like, whew, this is the generation. It's the me, I generation. But in the last days, people will be lovers of self. You know, like Second Timothy, right? Or either First, Second Timothy. In the last days, people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, pride, arrogant, abusive. This will
We're in
disobedient to
it.
parents. We're in it, man, and we're seeing it. We've got these little self worship devices and these little self worship platforms, and it's like, man, to be able to give a message like you're giving, where you're like, didn't satisfy. I got there. There was no there, and so I had to turn back to my first love. That's what we need.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm starting over.
Mm,
I'm climbing a new mountain, right? Because I have a new appreciation on life and people and, how I give back, and I think if you really think about it, I mean, society in general, what do we idolize? We idolize money, we idolize things, all the things that the devil uses,
yeah.
right, to try to persuade us to get away from God and just get away from caring about people. And, why do people want to be influencers? They want to
Yeah.
be famous.
Yeah.
Because with fame, you know what? I can get my own, soda pop brand. I can get my own beer brand. I can get my Lamborghinis. I can get the hot chicks. I can get
Mhm.
all these things, right? And I think that's giving the false expectation when, you know what? It goes back to the basics, man. Hard work,
Mhm.
right? All that stuff that I glossed over in the journey,
Mm.
man, there's 80, 90 hour weeks in there, right?
Mm.
People got to, so I think it's two things. I think it's one, this younger generation, and I have three kids that are going into the market right now. It's hard work, number one. Number two, like you got to bring faith along. You got to invite Jesus to sit in the passenger seat. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Mm.
I had him in the trunk for way too long. Being a CEO Christian, right?
Yeah.
It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
You start inviting him forward, opportunities open up. I'm going to go
Totally.
through some of those opportunities in a minute, but it was just shocking how the Lord needed to bring me, like almost break me down in that moment. I thought I was in the highest high. Um, I'll give you another great example. He was literally showing me how my free will, which is what all of us have, right? Got in the way of blessings or protecting me. One of the examples that just still to this day, I have a visual that I wish I never had. Both of my parents were killed 15 or what is it, 10, 11 years ago
Mm.
in a tragic motorcycle accident. They both died instantly. I got a call on a Sunday evening, and my brother calls me, who never calls me on the weekend. And he's like, "Hey, our parents are gone." And I'm like, "Okay, where'd they go?" And he's like, "They're dead." And I'm like, "That's impossible. I
Mm.
just talked to him earlier today, right? I'm going on a business trip, blah, blah, blah." So I literally refused to accept that they had died because I was in such a me state.
Yeah.
And I was in such a control state that I'm going to control the outcome here. So I left my wife, who had a 1 month old baby. And I said, I'm gonna go find him.
Mm.
And I got in the car at whatever, 12
Mm.
o'clock at night. I drove to the morgue and I sat in this hospital, and this poor receptionist, if she's listening, I'm so sorry. I was so rude to this woman. I'm
Mm.
like, "Do you know who I am? Did anyone positively identify him? I got lawyers up and down, left and right. I'm
Mm.
going to sue you guys, all for the single purpose of me
Mm.
fighting that they had actually passed away."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So she's like, "Sir, there's nothing I can do. I'll call someone."
Yeah.
So sure enough, after me screaming about who I am and my power and my free will, and the whole time God was like, "Dude, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go through this."
Mm.
And I fought it. And here comes this guy. You can tell he's, 1:30 in the morning. He's got a tie on. He's just looking at me like, okay. He came down and he's like, "Hey, I don't know what kind of threats you got, but listen, if this is what you want, I'm going to give it to you. I'm breaking every rule possible, but the threats you're throwing around here, I don't need it at 1:30 in the morning."
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's like, "If this is what you want, we're going to go." So I'll never forget. He walked me down to the morgue, and he wouldn't let me see my mom because she was in really rough
Yeah.
shape.
Yeah.
But he opened up the body bag
Oh,
of my
dude.
dad, and my dad was dismembered. He was in a motorcycle accident, high speed, and I'll never get that visual out. The only positive that I got out of that was, my dad had a smile on his face. Mom and dad were both missionaries later in life.
Oh, wow.
So they literally, are in a greater place. And I know that now, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
at the time, the only thing I can take positively from that image was seeing a smile on my dad's face. Still had his helmet on, saw other things that I shouldn't have seen. And that was God's way of saying, brother, you see how this free will thing works out?
Yeah, yeah,
Careful what you ask for. I gave it to you. I tried to tell you not to do it.
yeah. Yeah,
Right. So that was a big wake up call for me.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, it just reminds me of David versus Saul. You
Mm.
know, Saul is taking things into his own hands. He's doing obedience just a quarter turn off. And David, his family gets killed. And he's like, Lord, do I have permission to go up against this army? Crazy. You and I,
Yeah.
we're like, grab the guns, let's go.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like
Right.
right now.
I'm all in.
Yeah, all in without even thinking, without even praying. But David is continually asking permission. And Saul is super performative. He gets upset when everyone's singing songs about, Saul's killed him in the thousands, David
Yeah.
kills him in the tens of thousands. And David the whole time was just like, I'll just sing and dance before my Lord and bear everything before him. And even when he sinned with Bathsheba, it's like, it's all before you, Lord. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, create me a pure heart. And my question for you is to get to that place where you walk into that receptionist office and you're like, do you know who I am? Like, with your parents as missionaries, there had to be a moment where you kind of rejected the faith and you kind of started going towards the me power dynamics. Was that a slow drift
Uh,
towards that? Or would you say you never really encountered full surrender to the Lord till recently?
I think I fully surrendered when I first accepted
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, we're in." But I think you get into a season, and for me, it was a longer season than it should have been.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, I'll call him when I need him, kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus really believing that every day, like he just is going to be in my heart and he's going to do what's best for me. Right. So I think I lived a very selfish life for a very long time. And I thought titles and assets and material things would fill that itch.
Hmm.
And it didn't. And like you said, when you get there and there's no there, it's like,
Yeah.
woo. But the hard part now, to kind of fast forward, is after God gave me this revelation and kind of gave me this whole like, He really wanted me to feel what even with the job changes. He's like, I gave you the growth mindset. I made you uncomfortable
Mm,
in certain jobs because you were getting too comfortable. It was time for you to move, but I was there for you,
mm,
and I was help orchestrating your story, right? So it was great. That next day, I woke up and I'm like, oh boy, now I'm in the yes. What does that look like? Well,
yeah,
how do
dude.
I show up at one of actually it's the largest company in the world. I think Apple and Microsoft go back and forth.
Yeah,
What is this going to look like? Right?
totally.
I'm
Yeah.
just this trailer park kid who, got success, worked my butt off, and now I'm here. But now I got to say yes to him.
No, dude, two of the scariest words to say to the Lord are yes, Lord,
Yeah.
because he's going to take you up on it.
Yeah. And he did. And he did. So I'll give you a couple of examples of when I finally said yes. And it's really cool stories. One of the boards that I sit on, I had a board meeting coming up. I'm sitting on a plane getting ready to fly to LA. And I had a full presentation created by my team on what I'm going to talk about and do all these things. And then I get a text from the same person who invited my wife and I to the church, one of her high school friends. And she's like, hey, did you see this Instagram? And it was like, they're canceling Christmas. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
This is a media company you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And so I'm like, whoa, okay. And then the second text, Chad, you got to save Christmas. I'm like, okay, I'm flying right now to go have this meeting. What am I going to do? So I said, okay, Lord.
And for context for the listener, I know you don't want to see the name of the company. I don't want to force you into that, but this is one of the largest media companies
Probably one of the most iconic brands out
in the
there in the
world.
world. Yeah. And so what did I do? I all the gifts that God gave me, right? Like getting into detail, understanding the dimension of like how business works and all this stuff. I took a pivot and I spent the next, thank goodness they had Wi-Fi on the plane. I spent the next 4.5 hours just doing research, and I killed them with facts. And I'm like, hey, listen, their stock price is down X amount. They've lost X amount in market value. Oh, by the way, there's this Bud Light experiment that went on and they saw the lack of results. And so when you get into board meetings, it's interesting because it's a lot like Congress and everyone gets to see this real time on CNN and Fox
Yeah.
News, right? Most of the things that happen in the hallway. They don't
Hmm.
happen when you actually sit down. So I'm on a warpath like, hey, what are we doing over here? What are we doing over there? Like,
Hmm.
are we really doing the right thing? Anyway, fast forward. Christmas was still in place. It was
Chad saved
record.
Christmas,
I
dude.
don't know about that. All I know is I planted some seeds, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that was kind of one of the cool stories. But then that was like, okay, that was a little bit removed from what I do every day.
But that
What
was a yes. That was a yes
It was a
moment
yes moment.
where you could have,
Very intentional yes.
and that was a moment where you could have lost your board seat. There could have been tons of things that go wrong there.
100%.
And that's what I
100%.
feel like is so cool about walking with the Lord is if you really trust him, he's going to ask you to do things that in your human wisdom, you're like, ugh, I don't know that's not going to be comfortable or that could not end well for me. And you have to choose in obedience to say, you're smarter than me. Your ways are higher than me. Your thoughts are higher than me. So you have my yes, Lord,
And
as an act of worship.
and he's protecting you.
Yeah.
So listen, I could have anxiety about being on this podcast. Like I don't have a dog in the hunt. I'm not getting, you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
doing this for the Lord. This is another
Yeah.
yes moment. And who knows where it could go? Maybe somebody will take it the wrong way. Thank the Lord, I work for an incredible company that is lets me be my authentic self,
Yep.
and they want our culture so important that they embrace, the different perspectives
Yeah.
of different cultures. So I'm thankful for that,
Yeah.
which gives me comfort. But um, yes, you're exactly right. I mean, saying those yes moments. There was another instance. You'll love this story. I flew in for a big meeting. When I fly in for meetings, typically there's something's wrong or it's like I'm going to have some serious conversation, so I have to get flown into this in Chicago actually. And somebody from my team, always I love for them to pick me up because that's
Yeah.
my opportunity to get kind of the down low on what do you need me to say, where are we at, what do we want to land in this meeting, blah blah blah. Well, a very large group of people in Chicago, I know what they were doing. They were all sitting in a conference room, and because of my, personality, I'm sure they're like, I'm not picking them up. So they were
Mm.
probably all like drawing short straws
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like who's gonna pick them up, right?
And
Because
what's your like what do people know you as? Like
I
if
think I think that they call me the chief challenger officer
uh-huh.
at work. All my employees, right?
Yeah.
I have the reputation of being a bit tough, but I also have a reputation of being a servant leader,
Okay.
right? And so they know that. Listen, he's gonna be really tough. He's gonna ask some really hard questions. I'm probably not gonna have the answer, but Chad's gonna have the shovel standing right next to me to go fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that keeps people inspired and motivated. So doesn't change the fact that they probably didn't want to pick me up because there's going to
Yeah. Yeah.
face some tough questions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So sure enough, somebody drew the short straw, and it happened to be somebody fairly lower in the organization. When he picked me up, I could just see. I looked over at him, and he's mad. He's sweating. He's like, hey, well, I'm going to make this A to B as fast as I can possibly go.
Yeah.
Well, then we get stuck in Chicago traffic.
Mm.
Right. And I look over and the bridges are all up. This is when all the social unrest was going on. Right.
Oh yeah.
So they would put the bridges up because they wanted to stop, the looting and all the violence coming into the city. So they
Mm.
put the bridges up. So I looked over and it was a new thing to me. Right. And I'm like, why do they have the bridges up? He's like, well, we went through it. And I just looked, and then all of a sudden God just said something to me. And he's like,
Mm.
you got a moment here. I'm like, oh man, what am I going to say? This is
Yeah.
like one of my employees. Like, this is getting a little close to home. Right. And I'm like, I'm just going to blurt it out. Right. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I think people have lost God in the world. Like, this
Mhm.
doesn't happen. And this guy looked at me, he's still sweating from picking me up. He's like, oh boy, what am I going to say here? He's like, I'm full blown Muslim. And I'm like,
Okay.
oh, okay. And I'm like, well, I don't care what you believe. I'm just telling you what I believe. My God's of love. And like,
Mhm.
he
Yeah.
would never let this stuff happen. And we'd all get along. And then God told me, shut up.
Mhm.
Usually I'm the guy who likes to go from 0 to 100, and I got to complete it, get it to 100,
Yeah.
and I won't stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
told me to stop at 10%,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
He's like, let me do my work here, right?
Yeah.
Well, the cool part of the story was a couple weeks later, this guy wrote me a real heartfelt email, said, man, I really appreciated our conversation. I enrolled my kids in Christian school.
Let's go, dude.
Dude,
That's
and
so cool.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's amazing what God will do with a yes.
Yeah.
I think we limit him. We're like, yeah, we need, your thoughts, God, but my thoughts are also really important too. So like, I know your thoughts are higher than mine. I'll absolutely. But if you tell me to do something that's a little bit off the wall, I might push back a little bit. And I think what's cool is the men and women God chooses all through the Bible, they were just wild enough to say yes.
Yeah.
Like he chose some crazy dudes, some idiots,
Yeah, right.
And it's like, okay, like When the horn blows, they're like, let's freaking go.
Yep.
Where James and John are like, oh yeah, the Samaritans disrespected you. Let's pull an Elijah and rain down fire on them and genocide this group.
Right.
And Jesus is like, he's obviously not down for that. But what does he do? He gives them the nickname the Sons of Thunder. He's like, I see your fire and I like it. So like, even though he rebuked them for, obviously we don't want to kill people, but I see the fire and that's a good thing. And then James or John, one of the Sons of Thunder, became the disciple Jesus loves. And like that's his name for himself. Like his identity shifted, but he never lost that wildness. And so I think what's so cool about Jesus is he gives us like a part to play
Yep.
where he's like, I'm not going to force your obedience. I'm going to ask for your obedience. And if you say yes, you're going to go on an adventure you never could have imagined. You would have probably never imagined yourself on the Jesus People podcast 15 years ago. You'd have been like, what happened to me? Right?
Yeah. Right. Right. No,
But it's cool. It's a yes. It's a yes after yes after yes.
It's a yes, and again, we have to be careful on the yeses that we say. Is it truly God? Because
Totally.
I'm sure, as you just said, you get
Yeah.
a million people reaching out to you, right? Like wanting to get on, some time on, your
Yeah.
podcast and other things. But it is cool when you start to say yes, how things open up, and like the more you trust Him, the more the plan starts to get unveiled. And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, I really had no idea like the things that would open up for me or the
Mhm.
conversations that could happen. My wife and I in October went to Mexico, and it was all about us, just the two of us getting away, 4
Mhm.
kids, like, busy,
Yeah.
busy. And all of a sudden her and I are having this great time and we're having a glass of wine. And all of a sudden the Lord starts speaking to me. He's like, the person behind you needs a certain verse.
Wow.
And I can't remember the verse, and I should remember it, but I'm like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to say yes. And so I got up and I walked over to the table and I'm like, hey, listen, I know this is going to sound wackadoodle,
Oh, yeah.
but man, God wanted me to tell you this verse. And she just looked at me and her eyes got big as saucers. And she's like, oh my gosh, you have no idea how that just like moved me. And I needed it.
Wow.
I'm going through a lot of stuff. And that is exactly what I wanted to hear from
Mm.
Jesus. She was a follower, but
Mm.
she needed to hear that in that time. And it's like, when you stop saying yes, that's when I think you're going to run into issues. Right. And so
Mm.
now I'm like practicing the yes, but being calculated
Mm.
about the yeses and making sure like I'm still checking twice
Yeah.
before I jump in. But you're
Totally.
right. And I think he uses, back to your earlier point, I'm seeing a trend where he's using warriors, people
Mhm.
that, have really, not the conventional. We had the conversation about Jelly Roll, right?
Yeah.
And I knew like his platform, just like probably people that are on here have such unique platforms.
Yeah.
But my wife's always like, he swears a little bit too much. He does this, he does that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, but you know what? He's resonating with an
Mhm.
audience that Jesus wants to. Jesus sat with prostitutes. He sat with
Mhm.
murderers. That's where he felt comfortable because he knew that those people would eventually bring that passion, those warrior
Amen.
mentalities to the cause,
Yeah.
right? To the kingdom.
Totally.
So
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, man. We were talking a little bit about my background and how you and I were both a little bit wild growing up. I had a coach one time pull me off the field after he should have kicked me off the team, getting in fights and stuff like that. And he said, Ryan, I'd rather tame a Mustang than inspire a mule. Never lose your fire.
Wow.
And he wasn't a Christian, but it was the first time in my life that someone saw that in me as a good thing. I had grown up going to youth group and stuff and always just feeling like the bad kid. I'm like, I love Jesus. I'm not with you guys.
Yeah.
I don't like hanging out with you guys. Sorry.
Right.
My friends over here, they might not know Jesus, but I like them more. My spirit resonates with them
Yeah.
more. And so God has had me on this journey. I've shared a little bit of that with you where God had to really take me into the wilderness and prune a lot of things for my life and a lot of failure in business and ministry and a lot of humiliation. And um, I found myself just after a big failure of a huge project, one that I'd poured my heart and soul into, having a panic attack every morning. I'd wake up just face on the ground and kept asking the Lord what he was doing. And he started whispering the word meekness to me.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, that's kind of boring, but like, okay, like I keep hearing this. And so eventually I just looked up every verse, started memorizing the verses. And I'm like, well, I should probably see what the Greek has to say about this. And I looked up the Greek word for meekness is praus. And this is after I
Mm.
told you about this project I'd done
Hmm.
where we took 4 boys and had them tame 4 wild mustangs over 40 days. So I now I have a category for what it looks like to tame a wild horse, a wild mustang. And so I look up this word praus in the Greek, and the definition right there, praus, to tame a wild mustang. And I about fell off the couch. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm probably one of the only people on the planet that has had a window into this and has studied this for so long, and also like loves Jesus and loves studying the Bible and
Mm.
understands how to, you know, read a Greek
Right,
lexicon and
right,
all
right,
that
right.
stuff. And what the Lord started doing in me was, first, he taught me what meekness was, where when Jesus says the meek will inherit the earth, he's not saying meek is a mouse. He's not saying the people with a meek temperament or a meek personality type, the mamby-pamby Christians that you see at youth group. That's not what he's saying.
Yep.
It's not meek as a mouse, it's meek as a Mustang. It's the ones who have gotten in the round pen with their master, and over months of time where you're this prey animal, eyes on the side of your head scanning for predators, a trainer walks into that round pen, a predator, eyes on the front of their heads. You have to rewire your whole
Yeah.
operating system to lose the ownership of your life to the point where you can put a bit in your mouth and a saddle on your back. That takes time. That takes learning to trust your master. And so I think Jesus chooses the wild ones because he's saying the meek will inherit the earth, and it's totally different. The kingdom of God is hidden, it's backwards, it's upside down, it's beautiful. It's not what everyone is thinking with the sanitized Christianity. Jesus wants the James and Johns, the Peters, the crazy
Yep.
kids, because they're just wild enough to say, okay, once you have my heart, I will put that bit in my mouth and the saddle on my back. And when the horn blows, I'll go to war and I'll run 35 miles an hour into battle, not fazed by the flaming arrows, because I'm so in love with you that I've lost everything. I've lost the complete ownership of my life. And so when he asks you to say yes to something, it's like, I've been here before. I've heard the horn blow before. I know what it's like to run into battle,
Yep.
but I know I'm not doing it alone. And so I think the meek inherit the earth because they're just crazy enough to say yes to the Lord.
Yep. Yep. I think that's a great analogy. Yeah, it's spot on.
It sounds
It's
like your story.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I think you put it a lot more elegant than I did, but yes, I mean that's exactly
Mhm.
the story, right? And I think he is choosing the wild ones right now, and I think that there's a sense of urgency. You and I talked about this as well. Like the end of times is coming, man.
Dude.
So I think he's picking key people and key places to start influencing, and that's the amazing thing that
Mm.
everyone that's listening has an opportunity. I don't care if you are literally, um, in a skill trade.
Mhm.
Everyone has a platform. You
Yeah.
may be driving somebody to a job site. You have a platform to basically tell them about Jesus and about like what's good about Jesus. And you don't have to be a top executive. You don't have to be an influencer,
Yeah.
right? Everyone has a platform. And I just think that we're missing that opportunity, right? Where it's almost
Totally.
like we don't want to talk about it.
Totally. And what I think is so interesting too is we hear these stories in the Bible where it's like, take Moses, for example. Moses is a hero of the faith, but he had 30 years in Midian.
Yep.
What did he do for 30 years?
Right.
He was like tending to sheep. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we like, and when we read the Bible, it just skips. It skipped like 30 years in Midian. He gets married, he takes care of these sheep, and then he's going back to Egypt. And we just go, oh, yeah, he's living a really, really Jesus filled, God honoring life. But the reality is, David was told he was going to be king, waited 15
Hmm.
years before he ascended the throne. Moses waited 30 years in Midian. Paul even had to go away for a few years before he went, got sent out
Yep.
to go be a missionary. So you've got these seasons of time where it's just waiting. And I think to call that out, like if you're working a trade right now, God is not as concerned about the output of your ministry life as he is about your obedience right now. And that starts by just getting up every morning and being like, Lord, what are you up to today and how can I help? Because you never know when he's going to give you that call to go back to Egypt. And in fact, I don't even think it's about the call. I think it's in the daily surrender to the Lord to just wake up every day and enjoy him, because we're going to die in like, 60 years.
So,
Like it's ticking, dude. And the
yeah.
book of Ecclesiastes, it's like it gets to the end of it and he's like, I've tried it all. I was the richest man to ever live. I had all this stuff. And what's the purpose of life? Eat, drink, enjoy your work, and
Yep.
that's the end. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think like, and that's not to That's not to downplay the mission God has for us, but I think so often we get so concerned about where we're going that we forget to just wake up and just enjoy him.
It's so true. And I'll just give you a great analogy that I learned one time. How many U-Hauls do you see following a hearse?
Right.
Brother, like you can have all the crap in the world, right? And I always, my wife gets sick of hearing it. And thank God she's beautiful and sitting over there, right? But
Mhm.
she gets sick of me saying all the time, like, listen, when I'm people are talking about me at my funeral, I don't want them to talk about, hey, Chad did this at Microsoft, or wow, did you see the house he has over here? Or you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I want them to say, wow, we know where he is because
Mhm.
he was a follower of Jesus, number one.
Yeah.
Two, he was a great person and he helped bring other people to Christ. And I think, my message is to a lot of folks out there, right? Like, don't be a material collector because in the end, it's going to be pretty sad when that U-Haul isn't chasing the hearse.
Yeah, yeah.
Be a soul collector,
Yeah.
right? Because again, we're not judged by our acts, but how we live our life. And I'll just tell you, like the more you lean into Christ every day,
Mhm.
man, the more fulfilled you feel. When you're having those bad times, they're not quite as bad. And when you're having the great times, they feel that much better
Totally.
because you're righteous, right? And
Totally.
so often I'm tested daily with doing unethical things, right? Whether it's my job, whether it's discount, whether it's whatever we talked about,
Yeah, yeah.
some situations. And it feels great when I do the right thing that I know God. And now that I've invited him to sit next to me,
Yeah.
and be a part of all the decisions, right? And actually ask him, right? One of your, I
Mhm.
think it was Asia who said it, right? Why don't
Mhm.
you, instead of you just telling him what you want,
Yeah,
why don't you
yeah.
ask him if it's right? And we went through a couple of examples on
Totally.
that. And it's like, wow, he made it so clear. And then the path started like opening up,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah, the other day I was just on a hike and I really feel like the Lord gave me a vision of my life 10 years from now. And what was crazy is it was this vision of me talking to a business partner about all the success we had
Yep.
and how we were now like, splitting ways and going to other, and who knows if this is going to come to fruition or not, or if it was just for the lesson. But I feel like the Lord was like, in light of that, in light of seeing that, how do you now want to live? And it was this really interesting category paradigm shifting thing for me because what it made me get to is like, tangibly, how do I orient my schedule throughout the day? What is the goal of my day? It's usually to accomplish tasks. What if I flipped that on its head and said, it's not about accomplishing the things, but it's about encountering Jesus? What if the goal of my life became encountering the Lord day by day? And it was this really um, humbling moment for me because it was like, duh.
Right.
Like it's like the most simple thing in the world.
Right.
Like the goal of your life is to love Jesus, but it made it really practical for me. Like, is the goal of my day when I wake up in the morning, is the goal of my day to commune with Jesus? And if it is, how do I do that best? And it
Mm.
doesn't mean I quit my jobs and I stop doing stuff, but it's like maybe the output is not going viral. Maybe the output is going and encountering him and communing with him before I communicate to a public audience. Maybe the output is me in canceling that meeting and just getting quiet with him, just going to solitary places. And that's been really interesting for me to think about. And it's given me a goal, like a goal to repent back to. Cause I think like in 10 years, what do I want to look back on my life and see? I want to see that I like enjoyed Christ. Like that's really where I want to get to. And I'd ask you as someone who has made it to the mountaintop and quite frankly has a lot to lose, like by going public with your faith and by being, very open and being on the Jesus People podcast.
Yeah.
w- when I say those things, does that resonate with you? Do you feel that way too? Are you like has that been a conscious thought for you?
Yeah, it has, but I think I go back to my warrior mentality. I'm almost
Yeah.
like bring it on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
want people to come at me,
Yeah,
right?
let's go.
Because, at the end of the day, like I'm gonna go accomplish this. This is the next mountain I'm gonna go, like I'm gonna be a servant for God.
Yeah.
Right. And like, listen, I think there'll be a lot of people that will listen to this podcast and be like, whoa, but I'm telling you, life is so much more meaningful. And think about it. We're in such a society right now
Mm.
where there's so much unrest going on. And my wife and I talk about this all the time. I almost feel sad for people that they
Mm.
can't see like all these signs that Jesus is putting in place for end times. People are
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, oh yeah, well, the economy sucks. And, they're going through all these things because they don't feel fulfilled. And I feel sorry for people that they don't get to the same level you and I are at and what the true calling is. So
Mm.
do I worry about all that stuff? I'm almost like, bring it on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. Because I know I'm doing the right thing.
Mm.
And as long as I'm doing the right thing, it goes back to an earlier comment. Like I know the armor of God is all around me.
Amen.
Like, man, maybe he's going to close this door, but you know what? The next door is going to be 3 times bigger.
Yeah. So it's interesting you phrase that, the next mountain.
Yep.
So you feel like are you climbing that mountain right now? Is that something you've been climbing, or are you like, I see something ahead that I'm going toward?
Yeah. Well, of course. Right. So professionally, I'm never going to stop climbing. There's always another mountain.
Yes,
Right. So
yes,
I'm
yes,
going
yes.
to, that's just my warrior
Of
mentality.
course. Yeah.
But with this one, I'm being open.
Yeah.
Right. And the things I'm saying yes to are starting to take new freeways in my life.
Mm.
And it is really, really cool. Right. I'm doing this with you, which
Mhm.
is great, which I think, again, I don't want anything out of it
Mhm.
other than, right, like I want to help people find what I've found.
Yeah.
But then tomorrow I'm doing something with, Rise Up Kings, right, which is
Mhm.
going to start getting more and more into the business world. And I think
Mhm.
God gave me this platform so that people will listen to me,
Yeah.
but when I actually speak, right, I want it to really just pierce their heart, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
want to make sure that I want everyone to go to heaven. I don't want anyone sitting here, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is why God is employing his Christians right now in very high places. He wants everyone to go to heaven. And
Mhm.
what a miss if you live life without it.
Mm.
I mean, how do you wake up 10 years from now and you don't have Christ in you? Like, you're just going to be like, I don't know, something that worms are crawling in and out of you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
like, you're just done.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how you live life like that.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard. I think it's a depressing thought. Like I was sharing with you a bit, like I'm in close relationship with a lot of atheists,
Yeah.
and it's just a different conversation because there's no hope. You know what I mean? Like you can see it in their eyes when you talk about serious things. Um, I hesitate to name who this person is, but um, they're a very close person in my life who doesn't know the Lord. And my mom was asking him, like, do you ever think about death? And um, he was like, all the time. And it was
Oof.
it was heartbreaking because you know that when they're thinking about death, they're thinking of it as either like this ambiguous nothingness or it's a bit scary. And I think that's what contributes to the fearlessness is I forget who said this. It's a famous Christian that said the people who did the most in this life were precisely the ones who thought the most about the next. Because when you're thinking about eternity, it's like, what does this matter outside of just being obedient and loving Christ and loving people, you know? And I love that quote because what's the fruit of that? What's the
Mm,
fruit of it? Meekness,
mm,
fearlessness.
mm.
Like you'll like it, you're not even phased when the horn blows and you have to go to war. When the Lord's like, that's your next mission. You're like, yeah, let's go. Because you trust him, you know? And the people that don't have that, what a lonely life.
Yeah. Or, I mean, when you look at it, we were sharing an example. Some of the folks in my circle are, they're some of the richest men in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we talked about one where they're spending billions of dollars on life preservation.
Dude, so
It's
sad. Oh,
that's the atheist.
billions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, okay, to do what? Like, I'm getting old. Great. Whatever. I'm going to die. Great. But I know where I'm going, which like almost is a
yeah,
celebration.
yeah.
Like, I don't want that for my family because at the end of the day, I want my kids to know who I am. I want to be around for them, but in the same vein, like I know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's my turn to kind of like all the blessings that God has given to me that took me a very stubborn way to find out. But like, okay, I did something for him as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And that today is kind of one of those validation points. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Amen.
but yeah, dude, just think about this for a second. How many U-Hauls do you find chasing a hearse?
Yeah, right.
I haven't seen one.
Yeah, that's maybe the best metaphor for this person in your life, multi-billionaire, spending billions a year. It's like you're already going off the cliff. Like
Yeah.
tapping the brakes a little bit, it's not going to really do
Yeah.
much for you.
Yeah.
But that's all they have. They're like clinging to something that doesn't provide hope. Like just this bag of bones that,
That's it.
that's it.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Dang, man. Well, okay, so you're passionate about sharing this message with the younger generation. What would you say to like the 19-year-old kid that's about to start his career, or just the younger generation in general? What do you feel like the Lord's given you for
Yeah,
them?
I think the Lord has given me a couple of things. For all of you out there, right? I'm not saying success is bad,
No,
right?
no, no,
In fact, Jesus wants us to be successful,
for
right?
sure.
And he rewards those that put the work in and do the effort.
As long as you seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added to you. So it
Yeah,
doesn't mean you can't chase it as long as you're seeking first.
that's right. Put that first before the material
Yeah.
things, right? And I think that, for the younger generation, I mean, it's okay to work hard and invite Jesus in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool the things that he will do for you. And then think about this, your story's already been written, right? So why not trust in the story that he's created for you? Lean into that, ask for guidance from him, get more focused on your personal relationships with other people as opposed to your relationship with things,
Mm,
right? We are
yeah.
so caught up in things and wanting to be a celebrity and being an
Yeah.
influencer, but why? If
Yeah.
it's not serving, God and ultimately yourself,
Yeah.
then why are you going through it?
Yeah, man. There's only three things that last for eternity, right? It's God, His Word, and His people.
Yeah.
So a life will not be wasted if you're pursuing those things. But if you're pursuing the things that moth and rust will destroy, like the Bible talks about, instead of storing up treasures in
Right.
heaven, like what are the treasures in heaven? It's what you did for the least of these here on this earth, right? It's the pursuit of the things that last in heaven, which is God, His Word, and His people.
Yeah. And think about it. All things on earth rust, right? I mentioned I have a Lamborghini.
Hmm.
That was cool for about a month.
Yeah,
Then you
yeah, yeah.
start worrying about like,
Like,
okay, it costs X amount of money
this
for an oil
insurance.
change
Yeah, dude.
and it's like, okay, if it breaks, where am I going to take? It's just becomes another thing, right? And I think for these folks that
It's a quick
want,
flex.
yeah, it's totally that's
Yeah.
all it is. So those things don't matter. It may be satisfied a short term itch,
Yeah.
but eternity and a life with Jesus is going to last forever. It'll
Hmm.
never rust.
Hmm.
And so if you get your head squarely around that, those other things don't become as important.
Yeah. And I think the proof's in the pudding here, right? Like you're on this podcast potentially jeopardizing the Lamborghini.
Yeah.
So it's because it could be very easy to be like, Chad, yeah, that's easy for you to say, bud, because you have the Lamborghini, you know? And what I've found is with mega wealthy people that have chosen to follow Jesus, it's typically because they've found out that there's no there, that it doesn't satisfy, that the Lamborghini, it is fun. It's really cool. Like it's nice having,
Yeah.
I would imagine it's nice
Yeah.
having a Lamborghini, but like to a certain extent, it doesn't satisfy your soul.
No, no, no. It's very short lived, right?
Mm,
It's very short lived. And when you get there, it's not what you think it is, right?
yeah.
And so again, there's valuing the relationships that you have with other people are the main thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Well, what else? Anything else that you'd want to share?
I mean, what else do you want? I covered a lot of
We
ground.
covered a lot of ground, man. I'm just really honored that you would fly down to do this and that just says a lot and I'm really grateful and excited for what the Lord has and our friendship and the journey he's taken you on because he's putting you in positions of leadership and influence with the people that are making the decisions in the world. So
Yeah.
I thank the Lord that he's got you in those positions and grateful for you being on here, man. It means a lot.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to the relationship that we're going to continue forever. So
Amen.
it's
Amen,
good
bro.
stuff, brother.
All right, man.
All
Well,
right.
thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.